All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to week 4. All right, so this is your last lecture for this term. Congratulations on making it this far. Um, we got a lot to cover, but yeah, we want to set you up for success and get you ready for the rest of the assignments along with your final exams. I'm going to move this out of the way real quick so I can have a little bit more space. Where did that go? Oh, there it is. Okay. All right. So yeah, congratulations. You've made it through 3 whole weeks and a half. I always like to encourage my students as well to stay in contact, stay in touch. Reach out to me on LinkedIn if you'd like. You never know when you're going to be interviewing for an internship or that dream job, and you might need a reference. So yeah, just give me some heads up, a week heads up so that I have time to respond. But yeah, definitely stay in touch on LinkedIn. You can see my profile here on the screen. All right, so we're going to do just a quick reflection on week number 3, just to get our brains warmed up, look at quiz 3, look at some of the topics we covered, and then get right into week 4. Our new topic for this week is compliance and operations. So we're going to be talking about some good stuff. Risk calculation. So yeah, sounds boring, but definitely want to consider that if you're an aspiring information security specialist. All right. Okay, so as usual, I'm going to encourage you to go ahead and check out one.fullsail.edu. It's a great way to stay up to date with what's going on with different events. It's a great way to network with other students. If you're online and you're just missing that one-on-one interaction with other classmates, it's a great way to stay in touch with others. All right? Okay, so this is week 4. Week 4 is different than any other week because you do not have any extra grace period. Okay, you know how we've been having some due dates on Monday, and sometimes there's a little flexibility there. That's not happening this week, okay? Because I have a deadline as your grading teacher, and so I need everybody to turn in their assignments by Sunday, 11:59 p.m. All right, Eastern Standard Time. So let's get right into what's next. And you can see here that the late policy did change. Okay, so if you're not sure what the late policy is, basically you don't have 72 hours to turn in any homework late for week 4. You had that chance for week 1, week 2, week 3. You basically have 48 hours, okay? It used to be 72 hours. We've reduced that, so it's a little harder to turn in assignments, after 2 days. And we'll still grade it for you and give you feedback, right? But you won't get a grade. All right, so let's reflect on week number 3. We talked about network security and cryptography. You got a chance to look at the OSI model, understand what cloud really is, talk about some of the common controls centered around cloud. But yeah, great job getting through that. I know that it was a lot of work. You had 6 total assignments, 2 discussions, 2 labs, 2 write-ups. Yeah, so that was a lot of work, and you made it through. I am still looking for Course Director Award candidates. So if you are on the right path and you're doing good, keep up the good work, because you are probably on my list. I don't like it, I don't like students to lose out because sometimes students will start out really strong in the class, and then by the end they're burned out and they just kind of give up and they lose out on that Course Director Award. So keep up the good work. Congratulations again on making it through all the homework. If someone were here with me, I would be asking you, what did you enjoy the most? But since you're listening to me after the fact to an archived recording, you should think about some of the topics that we covered in week 3. We talked about hacker wars with Anonymous. We talked about risky business with Apple versus the FBI. So these are topics that you could consider for your final week 4 presentation. If something was, if something was super interesting to you and you found some passion around that topic, multi-cloud or PGP encryption, whatever the topic was, you can go back to week 1, 2, and 3 and pick a topic if you'd like. All right. Usually, obviously, you want to pick something that you enjoy because you'll end up doing the best presentation in that situation. All right. So, Chapter 19 quiz was all about identity and access services. All right. And so you had about 10 questions. We're just going to quickly run through these so that you know what the right answers should have been if you're not sure. All right, so question 1, you are working with a development group on a new web application. And that application will be hosted in the cloud. All right, they need single sign-on capability. They're going to use that sign-on capability to exchange authentication and authorization data between multiple security domains. And they prefer working with XML. What would you suggest that they use? All right. So you've seen this question. You know that from chapter 19, basically, the answer is an open standard. Okay, it's for exchanging authentication and authorization data between parties. All right, so we have 4 choices: Secure ID, Radius, PAP, and SAML. All right, and so from chapter 19, you should know, okay, that the correct answer is D, SAML. All right. Okay, question number 2. Which of the following is an open protocol that allows secure token-based authentication and authorization from web, desktop, and mobile applications? And it's used by companies such as Google and Microsoft to permit users to share information about their accounts with third-party applications. Well, whatever answer you chose, if it was the right one, the topic, the choice is commonly used as a way for internet users to grant websites or applications access. Okay, so that's a hint. And so just from chapter 19, you should already know that it's OAuth. Okay, that's what we use with web applications in terms of the protocol that allows secure token-based authentication. Okay, so question number 3. Which of the following is a service designed to enable single sign-on and federated identity-based authentication and authorization across networks? So, chapter 19 talked about the fact that this is a linchpin that basically securely authenticates identities. It's a single sign-on SSO solution that allows management to make informed authorization decisions, keeping everything private. So you got Shibboleth, you got XAML, okay, you got PAP, and then you got Oasis. So from chapter 19, you should know that the question is the very first one, okay? And moving on to question 4. Which of the following is a true statement about NTLM? All right, NTLM is Windows New Technology LAN Manager. All right, and so it's a protocol, and we want to know which is a true statement. Is it A, it is typically used on standalone systems? B, it passes user credentials in clear text only? C, it uses an encrypted challenge and response protocol to authenticate a user? And then D, it is commonly used to integrate Unix services into a network. All right, so the correct answer is C. All right, you should know that it uses an encrypted challenge and response protocol. Know what that means, okay, NTLM. Question number 5, your IT group is reworking their user authentication and authorization capabilities. Okay, so imagine you got that dream job, and they need something that can be used to control access to objects as well as handle user authorization and authentication. Which of the following protocols would you suggest that your team use? All right, so we got LDAP, we got MS Chat, PAP, and TACACS. All right, so the correct answer is a software protocol, all right, for enabling anyone to locate data about organizations, individuals, and other resources like files, etc., devices. Right, so the answer should have been A, okay, LDAP. Question number 6, OpenID Connect allows for which of the following? We got A, identity can be confirmed with a single UDP packet. B, trusted IP addresses can be used to mitigate brute force attacks. C, a third party can authenticate your users for you using accounts the user already has, okay, or multiple users already have. And D, symmetric keys can be shared across unsecured networks. All right, so in this case, we're going to go with C, right? A third party can authenticate your users for you using accounts the users already have. Question number 7, which of the following statements regarding TACACS is true, with the plus at the end? Answer here should have been C, okay? And I'm not going to read all that. You already know by now what the question says. All right, so question number 8, your development team needs an authentication solution that supports authentication across stateless platforms. And so they want you, the expert that they hired, they want you to explain how other applications use Facebook or Google logins for authentication. And so in your explanation, which of the following concepts would you personally need to mention? So in this case, we got XML requests, we got secure tokens, we got secure tickets, we got request packets, and you're going to want to talk about secure tokens, all right, especially when it comes to dealing with Facebook and Google. Which of the following protocols uses a key distribution center and can securely pass a symmetric key over an insecure network? Which of the following protocols? So we have Kerberos, LDAP, PAP, and CHAP. So the answer is a network authentication protocol, right? It's designed to provide strong authentication for client-server applications by using a secret key. And the answer here would be A. All right. Question number 10, a colleague has been tasked, one of your teammates has been tasked to update the authentication protocols for a very old Windows-based application running on a standalone system. It still uses Landman, and it's running Windows XP. And for those of you who were around back in the day, you know that's pretty old. The colleague would prefer to keep using something from Microsoft, but she can't seem to upgrade the operating system past Windows 7 during this effort. Which of the following would you suggest that she use? All right, so from chapter 19, it's going to be NTLM. All right, rocking and rolling. So you had a second quiz on cryptographic concepts, chapter 26. Let's just quickly run through these. Question number 1, what makes a digitally signed message different from an encrypted message? And the answer you should have chosen was B. A digitally signed message has encryption protections for integrity and non-repudiation, which an encrypted message lacks. All right, question number 2, what does a salt do? All right, we talked about hashing, we talked about salting, how we can make it more secure. All right, so your answer here should have been it provides additional security. Okay. Question 3 on the second quiz. In developing a system with a logon requirement, application with a logon requirement, you need to design the system to store the passwords. All right, so you're going to ensure that the passwords being stored do not divulge secrets. Which of the following is the best solution? And we just talked about salt. So yeah, that's going to be a great way to help keep those passwords protected even more. All right, what does Diffie-Hellman allow you to do? You should have chosen B, exchange keys in band. Okay, not out of band. And then what does ECC work well on? Why does ECC work well on lower power devices? Your answer is going to be C, Less computational power is needed for a given key strength. All right, not less memory, not less security. Question number 6, given a large quantity of data in the form of a streaming video file, what is the best type of encryption method to protect the content from unauthorized live viewing? Okay, so think about that. And your answer here is stream cipher. All right, question number 7, if you need to ensure authentication, confidentiality, and non-repudiation when sending sales quotes, which method best achieves this objective? And you're going to go with D, digital signatures. All right, winding down, we're on question 8. What is or why is the random number used in computing called a pseudo-random number? And your answer is algorithms cannot create truly random numbers. What is the best way, if any, to get the plain text from a value that's already been hashed? What's the best way to do that? Well, you can't get the plain text out of a hash value, especially if it's been salted after the fact. All right, so what kind of a cryptography makes key management less of a concern? Key management. So we have asymmetric, asymmetric, and the answer is going to be asymmetric. All right, so that's it. If you have any questions about the quizzes that you took last week, and maybe some of the answers aren't clear, let me know. I will try to walk you through it and bring more understanding. Let's get into compliance and operations. And as we're starting the new material for week 4, again, I know I've been like a broken record all term long. Please, if you have not thought about your week 4 presentation, that's like a good 15% of your grade, go ahead and start thinking now. It's Thursday before the end of week 4. This is the last really chance that you have, considering that you have final exams as well. All right, so risk calculations in the context of operations and compliance. Let's talk about it. I want to make sure my sound is up. Okay, yeah, it is. All right, so risk calculation for business, okay? That's what we're concerned about. As an aspiring information security specialist, I know that talking numbers is boring sometimes for us IT people, but this is something you got to think about, right? You're sitting in a meeting with legal, or you're sitting in a meeting with, your team and legal, and you need to understand what they're talking about in terms of what you do as a information technology or information security specialist, right? So risk calculation for business. What is risk? Well, it's a formula. And it's based on probability times or multiplied by loss. Okay, so where risk is the probability of loss multiplied by the amount of loss. And when I say the amount of loss, I'm saying the amount of money, the monetary term of loss. All right, so you need to understand the language. When you're sitting in those meetings, or you're getting ready to start another project, and they're trying to ascertain what is the risk of starting this new project, in terms of this security measure we're going to put in place. Is it going to be worth it? Yada, 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 right? So it's important to understand how to communicate it, how to articulate it. Okay, so for example, there's a disaster. There's a hurricane in Florida. You're sitting there and maybe you have your company that you're working for has its own data center. What is the risk? The probability times the amount of money that could be lost if your data center is compromised. What if some crucial servers are stolen from the data center? What if there's a fire? What if there's a mass shooting in Florida and it happens to be in the same neighborhood as your data center? What if your company merges with another data center or another company that has its own data center? Like, what is the risk of merging those two? So these are all examples of how you have to be able to look at risk calculation from a business sense, even though you are interested in just the IT piece, right? The technical piece. All right, so there are two types of risk. One is qualitative, the quality, the process of analyzing what's involved, okay, with a threat, okay, or an opportunity that's taken advantage of. So how likely is that threat? How likely is it to happen? What's the potential impact? Okay, that's qualitative. So as boring as it sounds, you're doing some analysis here, right? And then quantitative is, again, it's a numerical number. It's like you're quantifying the data, okay? The average activity completion time, the logistics, 15% chance of causing a delay, X number of days. Those are examples of quantitative risk, okay? There's a number associated with it. All right, so there are a ton of terms that you should be familiar with. You don't have to know them all, but just generally understand what they are, like single loss expectancy, annual loss expectancy. If you think about a physical store, right, versus an online shopping cart, both of those have risk potential. And so how do you calculate that risk? Well, you got to know how to use cost to mitigate, right? How to talk and how to analyze those numbers so that it makes sense to the people that you're working around. All right, third-party data sharing is our next topic. And let me just say that we use a lot of free services as just normal people, right? And so third-party data sharing is something that we do on the regular. Like half the time, we're so in a rush to get access to an application, an online service. We're so in a rush to get access to it that we literally sign our lives away. We sign our data away. Basically, you're signing a contract by clicking yes to that terms of agreement, so that you can hurry up and check your email, so that you can hurry up and give access to your camera, your contacts, and yada, 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 right? So just be aware as a information technologist working for a company that there are contracts that you're going to have to put in place when there are applications built. If there's a shopping cart being built, there's a service level agreement. It happens. It's in the process of that person shopping for whatever. The little legal terms at the bottom. So let's talk about SLA, service level agreement. That's something that you would come into contact with if you were working with a vendor. All right, SOW, service of work. Again, we're not going to expect you to know all of this. Remember, this is an introduction to information security, but you need to be aware of what online services and business agreements are out there, besides terms of agreement, besides service of work, besides terms and conditions, service level agreement, et cetera, end user licenses, right? You need to know about all that. All right, and last but not least, if the service is free, okay, you actually are the product. Your data is actually the product. So so are your customers, right? So if you're giving them free access to something, you're probably storing their data and using it some kind of way. So just or not you, but your company is that you choose to work for. All right, GDPR. In the news. So General Data Protection Regulation. It basically gives companies a new set of rules for sharing data online. And if you know anything about the European Union and how they handle data for some of their citizens, they came out with a GDPR regulation basically in 2018. And it went into effect just for European citizens. So if you don't live there, this doesn't apply to you. But on January 2019, Google was fined $57 million for not properly disclosing to users how their data was being collected across all of its Google services. And when you sign up for a Google account, you get access to like tons of applications. So yeah, it may not seem like a lot of money. Google price needs at it or not, because they make so much money from selling your data that was probably a drop in the bucket. So we're bringing this up to just let you know that there are regulations in place, And so you as a information security specialist you need to know, hey, if we got a shopping cart, how are we using those people? How are we using all of our customers' data? Are we protecting the data? Are we, if you're selling it, you got to tell them. If you're not telling them, you might be fined depending on where and how you're using it. California, for example, the CCPA, California Consumer Privacy Act of 2018, they came up with a similar rule for trickling for just California residents. And again, if you don't live in California, this doesn't apply to you. But let's talk about how it impacts security. So obviously, if you have customers from Europe coming to your shopping cart, how are you dealing with that? How are you dealing with the fact that you have to disclose to those European customers how your company is using their data? Now, it might not apply in the U.S., right? But it would for those particular customers. So you have to be able to track who they are, make sure you're fully making them aware of how you're using their data. What should be done? Well, you need to talk to the lawyers at your company, legal department, right? Make sure you understand how y'all can work together as two separate teams to make sure you're covered. You don't want a $57 million lawsuit coming your way because somebody decided to create an application and not, disclose how they're using the data. All right, control types. Control types. How can we monitor, limit the access, and control the behavior that creates all this risk, right? Every business has risk. Doesn't matter what industry, doesn't matter how good you are at crunching numbers or selling products. There's risk everywhere. So we have to have some controls in place to monitor what's going on, to limit access to people who want to come in and take advantage of a vulnerability that they know about. And then we need to control the behavior of our current employees too. So obviously on the technical side, you got firewalls. On the administrative side, you got, rules that we can put in place. Detective type devices like camera devices and alerts. Compensating, making sure we have backups to all of our systems. A deterrent from a physical standpoint. For example, when you go to campus, when you go to Full Sail campus, you'll notice that there are lights in strategic places because that is to deter people from doing something not so good, right? That promotes safety, having those extra lights in strategic places, having cameras in strategic places. That's going to promote safety. It's going to make somebody second guess wanting to do something wrong. Preventative, patching software updates, keeping those up to date. These are all types of controls that you as an information security specialist could suggest and should suggest to your organization. All right, policies and procedures. Another boring topic, but guess what? You need to be able to sit in those meetings and talk about it. Employee rules of engagement, for example. All right, acceptable use. So when you go work for a company, if you haven't worked for a company before, you should know that there is something called acceptable use. And what that means is when you're using company equipment or phones in the conference room, et cetera, you should probably limit it to business activity. All right, so if you've never worked professionally, that's just something that's understood. And you'll sign some papers in the beginning that kind of allude to that. Privacy, no privacy. There's basically well, for the most part, there's no privacy on company assets. Okay, so you should know that as well. Security, password, applications, that's another thing, right? And then mandatory vacations is another way of having a policy in place that helps keep risk down. All right, so mandatory vacation says, hey, we don't want one person being the expert on this one system, right? We need to cross-train, because if we don't cross-train and have multiple people who are experts, guess what's going to happen if that one person is not available? So what some companies are starting to do as a policy and procedure is they are saying, hey, we're never going to, everybody's got to take vacation, because that by taking that vacation, what you're doing is basically encouraging your teams to cross-train and make sure not just one person knows how to do XYZ or ABC. Least privilege, that just means don't give out more access to a particular system than is necessary. It's sort of on a need-to-know basis, right? You don't want the HR employee having the same access as the computer programmer in the IT department, right? It doesn't make sense. They don't both need the same level of access. So, give out the least amount of privilege possible until more is necessary. All right. So that falls under policies and procedures. Let's talk about regulations. So last week, we got a chance to talk about a little bit of data security, right? And we went through some of the regulations that are already in place, like HIPAA and FERPA and SOX and PCI. PCI is all about the payment card industry, how credit cards are handled. GLBA handles financial institutions. SOX is the same thing, right? It's a law that's meant to protect investors from fraudulent accounting activities by corporations who sell stock. FERPA, family educational rights. So you probably heard of some of these. HIPAA is health insurance. But yeah, be aware. You will be playing around with this more in lab number 7 for week 4. So we'll talk about that in a sec. Standards organizations. So the good news about standards organizations is that you don't have to start from scratch. This is introduction to information security, but you don't have to know it all. You don't have to start from scratch. There are companies out there who have already learned the lessons. They've already figured out the common cybersecurity attempts, and so there's new ones coming out every day, but you got the ISO, you got the STIGs, you got NIST, which is National Institute of Standards and Technology, and they have best practices. They have documents that you can actually use and refer to instead of having to start from scratch to understand some of this stuff we're talking about. Cybersecurity framework, another one. For your homework, I think you're going to play around with some data or some documents from NIST. They provide the cybersecurity framework overview. So they basically, walk you through how to identify, how to protect, how to detect, how to respond, and how to recover. And so instead of you coming up with your own process, guess what? The National Institute of Standards and Technology has already figured it out. All you got to do is use it as a template and, tailor it, make it your own in terms of how your company wants to deal with cybersecurity. Forensics. So how can forensics play a role in information security? What's the whole, why would we be, we're not in like a crime unit, are we? Sort of, right? So if something happens, if we're talking about risk, we're talking about disasters, we're talking about theft, we're talking about, buildings burning down or data being breached. How do we use forensics from a digital perspective to solve or reduce risk, the possibility of risk, right? There's always risk, but how do we reduce it? So one way to reduce risk is by forensics, and in our world that would be called like change management, right? So if there's a system in place, somebody wants to change it for some reason, let's say it's a shopping cart or it's an application or it's a network, something needs to be installed. Guess what? Your company is going to have a change management system of some sort. Even if it's archaic, it should be in place so that somebody can document, hey, what change are we making? What time are we going to make that change? If we bring down the shopping cart, how much money are we going to lose? How are we going to notify our customers about that? And that all goes into the change management document that your company is keeping track of. And so that's going to help reduce risk, right? Incident response plan, all right? That's another document that many companies use. Metrics, a baseline performance analysis of how data is moving. on the network. Physical security. You got, I mean, these are all things that create a paper trail, so to speak. So that if something happens and somebody needs to investigate or audit or whatever, and they need to make sure this doesn't happen again, well, these are the forensics. These are the pieces and parts of the forensics in the IT world that's going to be used to make sure it doesn't happen again. All right, I think that's it for today. We talked about compliance and operations. A lot of good stuff to consider for your week 4 presentation if you're interested. And for some reason, it looks like we're getting disconnected. I'm going to give Zoom a chance to come right back. It's a good thing I am recording with a secondary tool. But let me just keep it moving. So for your homework, I'm going to move this Zoom thing out of the way, and hopefully it'll come back to us. All right, so you have 5 homework assignments for week 4. All right, compliance and operations. You got, let's see, you got 2 labs. One of the labs is your week 4 presentation. You already knew about that, right? So let's see. You got a final quiz, which is comprehensive, about 25 questions. You got another quiz on Chapter 22, which is all about Security Plus, right? And then you got Cloud Consensus Initiative Review. So this is a challenging week, all right? This is a super challenging week. I'm going to go ahead and close this out. I'm not sure why Zoom is giving me problems. But, all right, so Cloud Consensus Initiative. You're going to download the Cloud Security Alliance Consensus Initiative assessment. All right, that's a huge document. And I do mean huge. It's a digital file, but it's got a lot of stuff in it. And unfortunately, that's how this industry is. A lot of the documents that are provided to you from these standards organizations they're not always well organized, and you just kind of have to get in there with your feet first and figure it out. But you will have 28 questions to answer, okay? As part of your lab write-up. Presentation prep, you're going to use as much time as possible. You're going to watch a video, but then you're going to try to do some reflection and figure out how to best present yourself. All right, task 5, you're going to gather, all those deliverables into a Word document and just share, your information or your perspective on how to handle that assignment. All right. Quiz number 2, I believe, or 1 actually, is on Chapter 22, and that's risk management and business impact analysis. Boring stuff, but it's good to know, right? Good to know. It doesn't hurt to know. And then we have a discussion on how to speak. All right, giving you some tips from Julian Treasure. It's a YouTube video, how to speak so that people want to listen. All right, so you're going to watch that video. And I spoke about that earlier, and I actually misspoke because that's not until now. I don't know why that was. Oh, okay, I see what I did. I mixed the two. So after you answer your 28 questions about the Cloud Consensus Initiative, it's saying on FSO we told you to go ahead and use the rest of your time for the week to go ahead and presentation prep. Ask questions if you have them. If you're not sure about what your topic should be and you're nervous about, what you're about to talk about, we can talk and maybe I can help you feel better. But yeah, you're gonna watch this video and find out about the 7 deadly sins of speaking. What are the 4 cornerstones to make your speech powerful, and how to use the tools in your vocal toolbox to make your speech better, etc., etc. Now, remember, I do like to encourage students to read your presentation out loud for somebody real, okay, not just to yourself. Practice in front of somebody, and you'll do much better when it comes time to record your video. You do have to turn in a video and slides. Don't just give me slides and then put some audio on the slides. You need to convert it or export it from PowerPoint or export it from Keynote as a video. because you will lose points if I have to go do that for you. All right, so in your presentation, by now you already know you're going to give an overview. You're going to choose the topic that we've talked about in the last 4 weeks. After you choose that topic, let's say it's two-factor, multi-factor authentication, okay? You give me an overview of that issue, okay, in the information security world. Tell me why it's important to cloud security. Why is two-factor or multi-factor important? Compensating controls. What are some things like defense in depth? Like, defense in depth is a multi-layered approach to security. You don't just use one way of keeping people out of your house. You use multiple ways, right? Just in case one goes down or something goes wrong with one approach, you have another approach that kicks in. All right, so you're going to talk about defense in depth in relation to the topic that you chose, and then you're going to talk about risk. Okay, we talked about risk calculation earlier in the lecture. So now the last thing you're going to talk about is, hey, what's the risk to the organization from your perspective in terms of multi-factor, not using multi-factor, and we know how much that's cost companies in the past. So yeah, 10-minute presentation. 50% of the credit is going to your keynote presentation. 50% is going to how precise you are in explaining the 4 items I just covered. But, above all, have fun with it, okay? Pick something you're passionate about and have fun with it. Final quiz, which is really your final exam, which is 25 questions. It's a comprehensive final quiz on everything we've talked about. So I think you only get 1 attempt, so take it slow. But yeah. All right, I'm going to wrap up just by saying what I always say at the end. Personal time management is the key. You will not have any extensions after Sunday, so don't ask. Unfortunately, I can't give it to you anyway. So do your best to plan ahead, think ahead, ask questions ahead of time, and I'm here to help. I don't need to repeat what the late policy is. If you don't remember, just look it up. And yeah, if you have any questions, you feel free to reach out to the lab instructors as well. If you want to talk through something, Kyle, Luis, and Christian are all available as well. All right, so keep in touch. There's my LinkedIn profile, and happy week 4. All right, let's finish strong, y'all. And I will see all of you on FSO. Okay, take care, everybody. Bye.